On September 7th, 2018, the tragic news of the passing of Mac Miller was announced to the world.
Well-known rapper and producer Mac Miller, who was a longtime boyfriend of Ariana Grande, was found dead today. TMZ reporting from an apparent overdose. Authorities arrived at the 26-year-old musician's Studio City home around noon, where Miller, whose real name was Malcolm McCormick, was pronounced dead on scene.
Mac Miller's death was shocking because prior to his death, it seemed to the world that he had finally turned a new leaf and was on the road to becoming a better person. Mac's journey is all about evolution and finding a better way to better himself by becoming more mature, more responsible, and all of his growth is reflected in his music. With Mac starting off his career by making party and frat music with projects such as But Mackin' Ain't Easy, The High Life, and most notably Kids, and his first studio album, Blueside Park, Mac would want to reinvent himself after being called a frat boy rapper whose music would never be anything else. He would go on to release Best Day Ever to transition to the sound he wanted to explore, with Macadelic being released as a mixtape to fully explore the sounds of psychedelic and love-inspired music that moved away from his previous works. He then would deliver his second studio album, Watching Movies with the Sound Off. That was completely different from his first studio album, with more personal and introspective lyrics that changed Mac as an artist, and would feature heartfelt songs such as Remember, which honored a late friend. Mac during this time would go through a dark period and would start abusing drugs as a coping mechanism, and this would be a turning point for him. Mac would go on to release the Faces mixtape that included the heaviest reference of drugs and carried a heavier tone that signified the place that Mac was in his life, a dark place that could only end one way, with Mac intending to end his own life after the release of Faces, and the track Grand Finale serving as a final goodbye. But this wasn't the end of Mac, as he would reach a turning point and would start going out more, spawning his third studio album, Good AM. A message to the world that Mac was back and was in a better place than ever. Mac had climbed his way out of the void that consumed him during the release of Faces, escaping death and making his best project yet. During this time, Mac would start dating Ariana Grande, a famous singer who wanted the best for Mac and encouraged him to stop his addiction issues. Mac's music would take another turning point with the release of his fourth studio album, The Divine Feminine. The Divine Feminine was a jazz-inspired album that focuses on the core idea of love and was a complete 180 from Good AM. After the release of his fourth studio album, Mac would go on a hiatus, only releasing singles during this time. But during this hiatus, many controversies would happen to him. His publicized breakup with Ariana Grande was one of them, and the media would take Ariana Grande's side. Mac would be made out to be a junkie who could not be changed, and this perception would only be enforced when he crashed his G-Wagon when he was drunk. With all this controversy happening, Mac would use it to release his fifth studio album, Swimming.
My regrets look just like Texas shooting sand.
Swimming itself was a piece of work to signify evolution, and it meant coming on top despite the controversy in the past. A core idea of the album is swimming out of your situations, which means to keep moving forward no matter what. Mac had found himself in another dark place during the creation of this album, but instead of giving into it like he had done with Faces, Mac channels this darkness into learning how to give yourself self-care and self-improvement. Throughout the album, Mac is constantly referring to bettering himself and finding a way out of his head. This can be seen on the album with songs like Come Back to Earth, Perfecto, and Self-Care.
I switched to down zone, but what do I know? Spending nights hitchhiking, where will I go? I could fly home with my eyes closed.
Self-care, like what the title implies, is Mac finding a way to overcome obstacles faced and to better yourself no matter what. Improvement is something that Mac had believed in his music and with his life. Mac was always trying to involve himself sonically, and he had reached a climax with Swimming. Swimming was all of Mac's achievements and work coming together in one album that emphasized Mac's evolution as an artist and as a person. Maybe Mac had finally found a way out with Swimming, and he was swimming to a better place. Maybe, just maybe. But on September 7th, 2018, Mac was found dead in his home during the early hours of the day. Mac had come so close to finding a way out, but found himself going back to the root of his problems, addiction. He had found himself in a constant loop with his battle of addictions, kinda like a circle.
Well, this is what it looked like right before you fall.
Mac's sixth and final studio album, titled Circles, was released after his death and by his family, and it was an album being worked on until the very end by Mac. It would be completed by the legendary composer and producer Jon Brion. If Swimming was the end to the novel, then Circles would be the beautiful epilogue to close out the journey seen by many. Circles carries a more optimistic tone with more calming instrumentation. The man who had helped finish the album was Jon Brion and was a close friend of Mac who also helped on Swimming, and the two became close during the creation of both albums. Right off the bat, the album gives a sad tone, with Mac seeing himself fall, and it coincides with his death. After the beginning of the track, Mac sings about the complications of life, followed by Blue World that has a more uplifting beat. It samples It's a Blue World by American vocal quartet The Four Freshmen, released in 1955, and is about how the world becomes blue and soulless without your special someone. This relates to Mac trying to be without drugs, even though they gave him a good and special feeling. And all throughout the album, Mac is in a constant loop of trying to get better, but eventually returning to where he started. This state of repetition did come with experience, not only figuratively, but in the real world. Because when you try to change for the better, but eventually revert back to your old ways, there will always be the experience gained during that learning process. And this is the core idea of Swimming in Circles, the idea that you can try to better yourself, and you can try to save yourself, but it's okay to fail. It's okay to fall short. It's okay to swim in a circle sometimes, because you will have the tools to rebuild yourself, and eventually you will be where you want to be. And where Mac's journey was cut short, your journey is not over. And this is what Mac wanted to tell everyone. So thank you for watching, and I look forward to everyone's journey in life.